All right, so we're going to be talking about getting started with VR in Godot. I have a couple of slides just to talk in general about VR in Godot, and then at the end, we're going to just really quick put together the most minimal project that could work in VR with Godot. And let me know if you guys have any questions anytime, just speak up. All right, so obligatory About Me slide. Hello, I am David Snopek. I specialize in VR and online multiplayer. I work at W4 Games. I am a Godot maintainer on the XR and GD extension teams. I maintain a bunch of other open source add-ons and extensions and stuff for Godot. I make my own little silly games and tutorials over at snopekgames.com, and I stream some game dev, although lately it's been mostly like Godot dev, but sometimes there's games on YouTube on Fridays. So, built into Godot, there is support for OpenXR, which covers really a lot of VR headsets. These days, Steam VR is just an OpenXR runtime, but also the Android-based headsets like the MetaQuest, Pico, HTC Vive, the HoloLens, which is an AR device, not a VR device. Also WebXR. Both of these two things are open standards, so they're okay to be in Godot itself. Any of the proprietary APIs, though, are added via GD extension. There aren't that many right now for Godot 4, partially because Godot 4, some things need to get ported, but mostly because like OpenXR is amazing and has consolidated the VR ecosystem. So we used to have the Oculus desktop API, the Oculus mobile API, Steam VR was its own API, and all that stuff's now just in OpenXR, which is really, really cool. But some of the platforms that are supported via GD extensions is Tilt 5. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's like a AR thing where you like put on glasses and there's like this special mat that, I don't know, somehow is like reflecting the image back. It's really, really cool. I tested out at GDC last year, but we have support for that via GD extension. The mobile AR APIs, AR Kit, AR Core, and then, yeah, some outdated stuff. Oh, and maybe in the future we'll get the Apple Vision Pro. I don't know. That'd be really cool. There were a couple of people who actually did their own ports of Godot to the Apple Vision Pro. There was like someone who was posting on Twitter their apps that they made, but I have no idea how they did that. They did it on their own with the power of open source. Maybe one day we'll get something merged into Godot itself. So what kind of VR, MR, whatever features does Godot support? Yeah, VR, AR, there's a couple of AR devices that will work. The HoloLens, which I already mentioned, the Lynx R1, and then, devices with mixed reality where you're showing the world through a camera. We've got tracked controllers and haptics, eye tracking, hand tracking. In Godot 4.3, there will be face tracking and body tracking also, which is really, really cool. Right now, both of those are only on MetaQuest, because they're the only ones that support the OpenXR extensions to do them. But the infrastructure is there in Godot that if anyone else has APIs for those, we can add support. Oh, and spatial anchors and scene understanding to some limited degree, like being able to get like the mesh of the room you're in, or whatever other information that the headset can get from its sensors. So why use Godot over some other game engine for building in VR? Well, we have XR support built into the engine. Some of the other general purpose game engines, it was more of like an add-on thing. It isn't baked all the way into the core like it is in Godot. And I'm really proud of the fact that we do have OpenXR and WebXR like as a built-in part of the engine. It's very simple to set up and get started, which you'll hopefully see when we do the demo part. It is a general purpose engine. So there's more things in it than you would get with like a specialized XR game engine, which there aren't that many of, but I guess like there's a trade-off there. So like a specialized XR game engine would definitely do better at like rendering and being able to do all of the special things that XR can do, but then you miss out on like, well, I need a physics engine and I need all the other things. Yeah, we're not going to be looking at XR tools during this, but it is a very cool add-on for Godot that implements a lot of the stuff that you would want to do in an XR game or app, so that you can just drop it in and take advantage of those interactions without having to implement everything yourself. including locomotion. It has teleports, it has smooth motion, it has snap turning, it has world grab where you like grab the world and pull it to you. It has like a jog in place thing. It's got climbing, it's got the T-pose gliding, a whole bunch of really cool stuff built in. You can just drop in those nodes under the controllers and it will start working. Animated hand models that will also work with hand tracking. Hands are such a pain when you're just trying to prototype something. It takes a lot of work to make a good animated hand. Yeah, interaction systems, so being able to make different objects that you can grab and throw and snap in place and push buttons and turning levers and doors you can push and all of that kind of stuff. And a like 2D and 3D UI system, so you can use Godot's like normal UI controls and have them appear on a panel and then like point at it with a controller and click. That kind of like ray-based UI interaction. There's just like a nice little node you can drop in there and then just put your 2D stuff underneath it and it'll work. There's also the Godot OpenXR vendors extension. So like I said, OpenXR is built into Godot. But OpenXR wasn't originally created with Android in mind. So one of the things that the OpenXR vendors extension does, and the original thing that it did actually, the reason that it was created, was that to get OpenXR to run on Android devices, you needed to have like a special loader piece that comes from the vendor. That's also going to be standardized, and one day hopefully we won't need it because it'll just be one Android loader that does every OpenXR thing. But right now you have to use this extension. So that's one thing that it does. But beyond that, it also integrates a bunch of OpenXR extensions. So like OpenXR has like a core part, and then it has all these extensions, some of them specific to particular vendors. And we can't put those into Godot because they're not part of the core spec. They're vendor specific. And so where they end up is in this extension. So some examples, there's a meta extension that will give you like the render model of your controllers. So if you're wearing a Quest 2, you'll see Quest 2 controllers. If you're wearing a Quest 3, you'll see Quest 3 controllers. Logan, who is sometimes at these meetups, he's the one who implemented that. Meta scene capture, so the thing where you can like tell it where your walls are and your tables and stuff, and then you can play some of those games where you like shoot holes in your walls and see like an alien world out there or whatever. Hand tracking mesh, hand tracking aim, so it can like detect some of your hand gestures. Pass-through support has moved from being a core Godot thing to being in the XR vendors extension. And yeah, I think that about covers that. There's going to be more and more things there. There's a lot of OpenXR extensions, and we're slowly implementing them. So yeah, before we jump into making a quick app, does anyone have any questions? All right.
Nope.
Time for the live demo. This can't possibly go wrong. Here's Godot. So let's make a new project. Let's call this, what did I call my test version? Godot WI XR start, we'll call it 2. And we're going to use the compatibility renderer. It is possible to use the mobile and forward plus the Vulkan renderers with XR. Right now, however, there are some performance issues, at least as it comes to mobile XR. And we're going to do this demo targeting the MetaQuest. And that's, of course, like a cell phone strapped to your face. So for the time being, the recommended renderer for the MetaQuest is the compatibility renderer. All right, so first up, there's a whole bunch of settings that we just need to enable in order to make an XR project. Do I have to turn on advanced settings? I do. All right, so Godot uses a rendering extension called multiview to render stereo. It's like able to actually render the left and the right eye at the same time, as opposed to like rendering the left eye, like doing the whole render pipeline once and then doing the whole render pipeline again for the right eye. But in order for that to work, we need to enable the multi-view shaders. By default, they're not turned on because then otherwise Godot would be compiling these extra shaders when most apps are not XR apps. Anyway, that's one thing we need to come in here and turn on. And the other thing is we need to enable OpenXR. This this will have Godot initialize OpenXR as soon as the app starts, which, because we chose OpenGL, we don't technically need to do, but for Vulkan, like the initialization of OpenXR and Vulkan kind of happen together. They have to happen together, so this needs to happen at startup. And yeah, it's going to make us save and restart for these settings. Let's do that really quick. All right, so let's start making the simplest thing that could possibly work. We're going to make a 3D scene. Every XR app needs to have an XR origin. This is basically like the center of your tracking space, whatever that might be. And then everything else, the headset, the controllers, anything else that might be tracked is relative to this node. So we'll add those other things as well. The XR camera, this represents the player's head. And then we're going to add 2 XR controller nodes. Name it to left controller and right controller. And we actually need to tell it that this is the left-hand tracker. Oh, no, sorry, I confused myself. This is the left-hand tracker, and this is the right-hand tracker. All right, here, and I'll save the scene before I forget to do it. And so to be able to see our hands, we're going to put a mesh instance 3D in here, and we're just going to make a box, little box placeholder hands. In a real game, you'd probably have a hand model or a controller model or a gun or, you know, whatever makes sense for your game. We'll put one under each hand. And so that there's something to look at so we can orient ourselves, we'll also throw a box a little bit in the distance. Put that a few meters out. And so that everything isn't black when we test it, let's add a light. All right, I think that's everything we need for our scene. Let's attach a script. So we really have very, very little to do in our script. Oh, you know what? It opened it up on a different screen. Hang on. This always fakes me out when I'm casting something. Why don't I see that? Oh, because I sent it to the wrong desktop. There we go. All right, so there's really very little that we have to do in the script. Like I said, we've told it to start OpenXR right when the app starts up, but we have to tell the viewport to switch into XR mode. So we're going to do this little magical incantation. We're going to do OpenXR, find interface, OpenXR. For the other APIs for doing VR, AR, MR, whatever, you would give a different name here and load it. So like WebXR, or I don't know if you're doing Tilt 5 or whatever you're doing. We are going to initialize the interface, but technically we don't have to do this because it will be initialized already, but that's fine. I like to do that for some reason. I don't know. It'll just blow right through it. Yep, we're initialized, we're good. Then the most important thing that we actually need to do here is get viewport use XR equals true. And that is all the script we need. So next we'll need a couple of things in order to actually get it running on the device. Because we are doing the MetaQuest, we need the XR Vendors plugin. If we were doing PC VR, like Jacob with your Index or your Vive, like we wouldn't actually need this at all unless we wanted to use some OpenXR vendor extension from there. But it wouldn't be an absolute requirement. It would be an optional thing. So just from the asset store, we're going to download and install this. Successfully installed. Yay! We are, just to be safe, we are going to restart Godot. I don't think that's strictly necessary, but Godot will be happier if we restart it. Or it won't be happy at all because it appears to have crashed. All right, we'll restart Godot. Go back into our project here. All right. So now we need to set up an export preset to Android. Again, if you were doing PC VR, you wouldn't need to do this. You'd just be able to click the little play button up here. But we are doing the MetaQuest. So we get a couple of warnings down here. for mobile, you always need to enable this texture compression. We could just click this little link. It'll automatically do it. There's two ways to export to Android. There's like the APK export template, and then there's the Gradle build where it actually like runs Gradle and packages up an APK. We need to do that in order to use the OpenXR vendors plugin. So we have to check that one on. We need to give it a unique name that it isn't going to hate. Oh, yeah, it doesn't like those dashes. XR start. We need to enable the meta plugins. This is related to the loaders thing I was talking about. There's a different loader for the Lynx, for meta headsets, for Pico headsets, and then this Chronos loader, that's the standardized one that hopefully will get adopted for everything eventually. Oh, and this XR mode thing, we need to set that to OpenXR. All right, I think that's everything we need to do here on the export settings. But in order to use that Gradle build, we need to come to Project and hit Install Android Build Template. That just copies a bunch of build boilerplate stuff into our project so that it can run Gradle. You don't really need to worry about it. And in theory, I think that's everything we need to do. I'm going to attempt to run this on my headset. Oh, you'll see up here in the remote debug button, because I have my headset actually connected to the computer right now, and I have developer mode enabled. If you have a Quest, you have to go through the process of enabling developer mode, which is like filling out some forms on developer.oculus.com and like doing a thing in the app or whatever. There's instructions. But if you have your headset in developer mode and it's connected to the computer, Godot can detect it. And just by clicking this button, it will do the Gradle build, deploy it to the device, and start it. So that's what we're going to do. Give me a minute to shuffle some things around here. I want to make it so you guys can see what I'm doing, and I have to put the headset on my head. All right. I'm going to cast to my computer. Hopefully this will kick in a minute. Live demos. Let's try refreshing this page. The headset thinks that it's casting. But there, oh. All right, there's my messy office with a whole bunch of headsets and other junk. Hang on. Let's find Godot first before we go full screen. I'm going to hit deploy to the Quest. Oh yeah, select current. We didn't select a main scene to run. A very easy step to forget. All right, now I can't see anything, but let me switch to casting here. All right, can you guys see my cube? There's our cube we placed, and here are the cube hands. I'm moving the controllers around.
Yeah, we can see it. Very nice. Yeah, I can see it really well.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, there is a bunch of boilerplate, a lot of settings to enable, different junk to do. There is a template, an official XR template. You can get it at under the Godot VR project, Godot XR template, which has a bunch of this stuff done already. Yeah, like it includes the OpenXR vendors template, includes XR tools and some other stuff. So you can skip a bunch of that boilerplate. I do think it is useful to go through it though, just to kind of see what each of the individual things are. Relying just on a template means you could accidentally turn something off and then it doesn't work and you don't know how to fix it. But yeah, even with like all of the little things that we needed to do to get it working on Android and all of that, I still think it is pretty easy to get up something going. From here, you know, the controller nodes, They have some signals on them for button pressed, button released. The vector 2 change, that's basically to see like the joystick. So you could start getting inputs and doing whatever you want with that. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else would be next steps. Maybe looking at XR tools would be a good next step. Anyone have any questions?
That's pretty impressive how quickly you're able to just throw that together from scratch. That's great. Um, how many like polygons can you throw in here before it starts getting laggy?
Uh,
Like
so that,
compared to like other VR apps and things.
yeah, I mean, Godot's render in Godot 4 isn't as optimized as it could be. There's a ton of work going on Godot's render right now. Godot 4.3 is going to be much better, but I mean, as more time goes on, the renderer will get more into shape. It's just immature. At this point, Godot 3's renderer is still faster than Godot 4's. But quite a bit. I mean, um, I don't know. I have a game that I've been working on where you're like, it's kind of like Galaga inspired, and you're flying a spaceship and shooting at these aliens, and each of the aliens has 1,200 triangles. And I was doing some tests on stream on Friday where I was spawning like, I don't know, 50 of them or something. They're all like going around in a circle, and it was dropping frames, but only a couple. It was very barely noticeable that it was dropping frames, and I was trying to really stress it out, and that was all I was able to stress it out.
I don't know, I've been having something where I have like 2,000 rigid bodies that are floating around in space that doesn't seem to break anything. So that was cool.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to have like a pretty like expansive open world kind of setting to. I mean, yeah, and like I guess it's not as efficient as if it's actually a compiled game, but what do we think?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty efficient. I mean, if you're not going to be able to necessarily replicate like Red Matter 2 in Godot, but you know, it's good enough for most things that I think people want to do, and it's only going to get better. You know, Godot is
Yeah, yeah.
always improving release to release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I had no idea it was that easy.
Yeah, that was kind of mind blowing, actually.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you.